Welcome to Dark Loops, the Lasso Crew, where we discuss season 2 of the Apple Plus series Ted Lasso. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist from Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss episode 11, Midnight Train to Royston. How many of you sing a song to yourselves when you're saying that title? Okay. So fellow members of the Lasso Crew, please say hello and tell the audience a little something about who you are. And we'll start with Procrastinella.
Hello, my name is Pam, but I go by Procrastinella. I work in tech licensing for the University of Florida, a longtime movie and TV fanatic, freak, junkie, whatever you want to call it. Thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me back on your wonderful podcast.
So now we're going to go to Sister A, but before we ask her to say anything, I do want to recognize the overwhelming number of Liverpool fans proudly showing their colors tonight.
That's right.
Even though we drew
more than a coaster,
it was the best damn game of the season so far. That second half was fire. It was just lit football.
Yeah, that's football.
And it was amazing. And you know, you love both coaches. Yes, no, you love them both. And we're gonna go off on this for a moment because Guardiola came out and you could tell he was trying to be a little too happy because he was pissed off during the match for good reasons. Milner should have been out.
Walked off. Tom's walked off.
But when Klopp came out, man, about 2 minutes in, he suddenly starts talking strategy. And it's like the way they would actually talk to players that we don't understand. I've never seen a coach do that. I really kind of appreciated that. Plus his honesty. Well, if you're not going to play football in the first half, you're not going to win. Mm-hmm. Any other Liverpool reactions? We don't want to hear from Man U fans on that one.
I actually have to go upstairs.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tatsu.
Mo Salah is the best player in the Premier League, if not the world.
God, so, absolutely.
That's the truth. That goal is.
That goal was so damn good. Sane was happy for him. Goal was so good. Sane was running over and hugging him, man. It was really, really cool. So
even that assist for Mane's goal just
yes, exactly. Yep, boom. Carved him up.
Okay,
Mo Salah's a silly man.
So now that we've gotten our love of our team out of the way for a while. Sister A, please tell everyone who you are.
Yes, good evening. I'm Sister A with Sistah Speak Productions podcast. I am from the great city of Boston, a Liverpool fan, of course, top-notch club, and very excited to get to these 2 episodes as we near the end of season 2, Ted Lasso.
What are we going to do with no Lasso?
I don't know. We're going to be pondering it for a whole year.
All right. We'll move from there to Tatsu.
Hi, Tatsu. I'm a PhD student at Northeastern University in Boston. I'm also a customer success rep at a tech company. Big Liverpool fan, as we can see. And yeah, up the Reds. The right type of Reds.
The right Reds.
The right Reds. Oh, I love it. Okay. And next, Montien Miller.
Hi, good evening. I'm Montien. I am a registered nurse and IT analyst and TV enthusiast. And I love American football and know nothing about
Well,
that's okay.
Soccer.
That's a really cool.
I'm learning though. I'm learning.
And very next, our source of eternal joy, the one, the only, Tom Buller.
Hello, my name is Tom Buller. I'm a philosophy professor at the Illinois State University, lifelong Man United fan. I've actually been to Old Trafford.
It's not that great.
I don't think any of you Liverpool fans have actually been to Anfield.
Not yet, but I will be.
There you go.
You like Manchester United?
You can't really go right now, Tom.
And the Yankees and the Cowboys, right?
All those boo teams.
That was a good one.
Yeah. And how about you, Kerri?
I'm Kerri Morris, and I am an English professor at Governor State University. And I'm an NBA fan.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey.
So how about you, Dan? Welcome to the show.
Hi. So I'm Dan Lannin. associate professor of psychology, study help-seeking behavior, and teach helping courses, basically teaching people how to think about and give meaningful professional help for mental health problems and things like that.
So we very much look forward to hearing what you have to say about the Fieldstone Lasso relationship, both in and out of therapy. I had some issues I specifically want to ask you about, so we'll go from there. So we're so glad to have everyone here tonight. These are fantastic episodes. We got lots to talk about. But before we begin tonight's conversation, I just want you all to know that we are in the presence of a celebrity this evening. Our only Tatsu Shigeta actually showed up on my television screen.
Wow.
I think this
Look
was
at that.
Saturday morning.
Yes.
And I said, I was talking to someone on the phone, and I said, what? Wait. And then I'm getting my phone. I'm talking to someone. I'm trying to put the camera on, and I got to get it all done before the screen changes because it's not being recorded, right? So very, very cool. I instantly knew that was you, and that must have been the fan party they had in Boston.
Yep. Yeah, exactly that. My friend Tyson and I, we waited outside of Cask and Flagon. You know that one, Sistah?
Yep. I do.
Yeah, we waited outside there for probably 4 hours to get in. And we were literally one of the last people that were let in because everybody else had gotten, pre-registered and or whatever. So we get in. It was a great time, and Tottenham. My friend Tyson's a huge Tottenham fan. Tottenham were playing Liverpool, and it was a great game. And it was 1-1 going into extra time, and Liverpool scored off of a header, and it was glorious.
That's fantastic.
Nice.
So
cool.
Yeah, he painted his face. He painted his face and everything.
Wow.
So they of course loved that. But yeah, I thought that was really funny when one of my friends was like, "Hey, is that you on this advertisement?" Yep.
Are they paying you for that, man? Come on. I mean, they're making money off of it, right? Get your
I should request at least like free tickets or something, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So the format of the show, as you all know, is favorite line, favorite character, favorite scene, favorite theme. And the floor is open to whoever wants to go first.
My favorite line from episode 10 was courtesy of Deborah. You know, I'm actually glad to hear that you hate me. All these years, I've thought that you didn't feel anything for me. I'll take your anger over your indifference any day. Favorite line from episode 11, you just listen to your gut, okay? And on your way down to your gut, check in with your heart. Between those two things, they'll let you know what's what.
So which one of those do you guys want to react to first? The episode 11 quote or the episode 10 quote?
Let's go with the hate one. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, jump in.
Well, I think a lot of times indifference is experienced as a sort of form of hate, but you don't know how to react to it, and because it's ambiguous, right?
You know, that's a thing about arguing, is that when you do say something, you're giving the other person content, and a lot of times the content doesn't matter. You're pissed off, you're hurt, and just saying something affords them the opportunity to vent as well. And well, as saying nothing is almost like embodied contempt. It's not that, because sometimes when you're angry, you're full of hope, right? In other words, you're so angry because you have hopes and plans for a relationship, and you feel slightly betrayed or offended, but that anger still has the hope in it. But the silence is almost like, man, we're done. And that's really rough.
I guess what got to me about that is what caused her anger in the first place, which was her father's indiscretion and her mom, well, what she perceived as her mom's lack of response to that indiscretion. Because then when her mom was like, I knew, I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
ouch.
I was like, oh,
Now
so
I
it
hate you
almost,
even more.
yeah, it's like, so you enabled him, to have these
Wow.
behaviors, and then she was just like, but I loved him,
Mm.
and my love is deep.
Mm.
And I was just like, wow. Yeah, that one kind of hit close to home.
Mm-hmm.
What I loved about that scene is I didn't find anything wrong with her describing herself that way in terms of it being coherent. There are people that are just not assertive. They're not gonna say don't do that to me because they're scared of the risk of saying it. And love is a mess, and this is one example of love is a mess. And personally for me, as a parent, I've probably talked to my kids about perhaps more adult issues than most people think they should talk about with kids. At the same time, I don't want that moment to ever happen.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen when I could have had an impact earlier and to find out that I blew it off. And because believe me, the world's going to fill our kids full of ignorance these days. So if we don't get in there and at least give them our best, even if it's not fun, the world's going to make sure they get something. So
I found that quote, that entire scene, kind of hopeful. For the longest time, most people would say the opposite of love is hate. And then a friend broke it down for me years ago. She goes, no, the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. And to feel nothing, and to hate someone requires passion. So there she was saying, hey, at least, I can take comfort in knowing you did feel something for me, because I'd rather you hate me because, hey, you're putting effort into it, as opposed to just, giving me the cold shoulder. And, hey, doing that Michael Corleone thing where you just stare. Godfather reference. You got that one, Scott?
Right.
Where you just, you just stare at him with a cold blank stare that basically says, I feel nothing for you, which that's crushing.
It is.
Yeah.
I think behind that indifference sometimes, because indifference is almost a mask that people wear. But I feel like behind it is usually like disgust or contempt or just like you're icky sort of thing, which I dislike that more than being actively hated. If someone finds me kind of disgusting and like I'm poisoned or something,
absolutely,
they want to stay away from.
Well, this discussion, I'll just keep the thing moving, moves me to my favorite scene and quote from that episode, and I'll just say them, and then that'll be my favorites. Is when the women found out that Rebecca was having a relationship with Sam. That was some of the best damn comedy I've seen in 10 years. I laughed my butt off. Oh my God.
In the vicar's office.
Cathartic.
Just the best,
And
Sassy. Sassy is just the best.
Yeah.
And then the line for me that just kind of was boss ass bitch, because she was worried about what that impact would be on that little girl, and the little girl said, no, I got you, I'm there. And what fun to write, what fun to act. That was just, and that that was just, for me, that was the best part of that episode.
I was worried about Nora, how she was going to take it, because I knew she had a crush on Sam, but it was nice to see that she was celebrating her aunt. And like, okay, that was a bold move.
And I love that interaction between Keely and Rebecca, where they're playing 20 questions or whatever, and they say, well, is he tall? And she says yes, and she goes, is it Sam?
That's how you know.
Ding ding ding.
Just great comedy.
Inexplicable.
Yeah, fantastic. How about you, Tatsu? Favorite line, favorite scene?
It's hard for me to boil down. So I'm just gonna chime in throughout, because I had a lot of favorite scenes. But off of that discussion, I loved Sassy's interaction with ex-husband. What's his name?
Rupert.
Rupert. That was excellent because there's nothing very redeeming about that. Like him being there for Rebecca, right? It was a total power move. You know, total a-hole move. And you know, he's flaunting the whole time. But the one person that is not taking it is Sass. And he's trying to say things to egg her on, and she's like, nope, you're still a piece of, you know.
No, that's fantastic.
I really love that scene.
That reminded me of the Key and Peele sketch where the one guy would be Obama and the other guy would be Luther, the anger management.
Oh, his alter
Sassy
ego.
is Rebecca's anger management.
His angry alter ego.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's like, yes, a wing person, right? I've got your back. You're not going to say this, but I'll do it for you because I don't care. Good to have friends
Sassy
like that.
says, Rupert, I think about your death every single day. Oh, I can't wait. I'm going to wear red to your funeral. I will be a beacon of joy to the other 3 people there.
Oh, so good.
I love the way she delivered that. I mean, with such belief.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right, well, I might as well throw mine in there then.
Yeah.
So at the end, when he's leaving the funeral with his wife and baby Diane, and he goes, it's nap time. And Sassy goes, for you or the baby.
Because I was a little unsettled by that line because I do like a nap. I will admit that.
Yeah. I love a nap too.
I love a nap, but that to him was just like,
oh man.
And that was after he got invited back to the house, because then you saw Rebecca put it into action what her mother says, like, no, I'm kind to him, you know.
Yes.
As a way of basically deflecting and anger towards him. So
yeah, good
like,
tactic.
yeah, you do come back to the house.
Totally disarmed him. He was like flustered almost.
No thanks. I think we're busy.
And yet then he gets one last thing, like they foreshadow, he's like whispering something to Nate at the end.
Yeah,
exactly.
Was that interesting?
I did a lip sync on. I did a lip sync on what he said. Yeah, he said, "Come to the dark side."
Lightning coming out of his fingertips.
Of course he did, Scott.
Right. He's the emperor. That's clear now, right? And Nate is Anakin. I
told you.
You know,
you got it, Montien.
Yep. Right. And he or Judas, depending on how, you know, which narrative you're gonna write.
Okay, then I'm confused. The emperor then Palpatine, isn't he a bad guy too from Star Wars?
Yes.
Isn't that the guy who becomes the emperor?
Is that was it Senator Palpatine or something like? Oh, he becomes. Is he the lightning guy with the?
Yeah, because I only watched those first 3 movies like once a piece, so I don't really.
Yeah, that's him.
In the newer versions, he'll be played by Mitch McConnell. So.
Whoa!
Boom!
Oh!
Shots fired on target. Yes, absolutely. He's got a career waiting for him.
So, I mean, I've got 2 favorites, but I'll go with the big one, which was just Ted's cathartic scene. You know, and the best line, I just love the best line, which he just so vulnerable, like I'm bawling watching this, and he says, life is hard. And it's like, this is a universal truth we need to get out into the world a little bit more. Like, hey guys, hey y'all, we get it. Like it cuts across groups that we forget, you know. Life is hard for people. We don't always know how hard it is.
Yeah. And the more we try to act like we're not dependent on each other, the harder it gets. And I would say we live in a culture that's based on stoicism, right? Keep your mess to yourself, keep moving through, right? Seeking help is a sign of weakness. We even call it mental illness. When in fact, there are plenty of cultures on the planet that know this. And they build taking care of each other into their daily practices. They don't have to say, we're taking care of each other, right? For example, in Korean culture, the 8-year-old schoolboys are the ones who take the kindergartner schoolboys to the bathroom and show them how to use it. And they actually hold them up as they use the urinal. And, that ain't ever going to happen in this country, right? But what are they teaching them? They're teaching them dependence and help. They're building it into the daily practice. So they've kind of acknowledged that we're dependent on each other and not demanding this stoicism.
Can you really have any sense of community without a little dependence?
Well, no.
I mean,
Not really.
Yeah.
how neighborhoods are formed.
Well, you're right. That's the oxymoronic nature of our Marlboro Man culture, right? It's almost Monty Python-esque. You ask the Marlboro Man, hey, dude, how do you know you're so individualistic and rugged? And he'll look at you like you're stupid. And you'll say, because everyone tells me so. And he won't get the irony, right? He just won't. Yeah, I built this country myself while you stand on a highway built by thousands of other people. Just that ignorance, that level is what we find ourselves kind of living in and dealing with, I'd argue. So yeah, I appreciate.
And I would argue that Ted Lasso was a Marlboro Man. That's why he was having panic attacks.
Yeah. He's even got a mustache, man. He has a little bit of that Western.
Totally. Yeah.
I don't know what technique they use. I compared it to a match shot when they were switching between Ted and Rebecca's talking about those traumatic experiences that happened with their fathers. It was like, it was almost like they were completing each other's sentences while telling the story, but describing their own experiences. I thought that was interesting, the way that they did that.
All roads lead to the Godfather. It could be similar to the end of Godfather 1. Remember, do you renounce Satan? Kaboom! Clemenza, kicks in the elevator and kills someone. Everything Michael repeats, it flipped on its head by an act, wiping out his enemies. I love the back and forth in that scene. I thought that was, pretty shrewd, but it leaves the question, okay, I was wondering, just being a details person, did Ted's father die on that specific day? But it was really neat how they did it. I thought that was pretty cool, and they could almost be opposite sides of the same coin when it comes to their pain. I think it's even confirmation, because the other day, as I was thinking about the show in my notes, you asked about a theme, and I, just going stream of consciousness, first thing came into my mind was forgiveness. And then later in the week, I remember thinking, you know what? A good song they could have used in this show, or the theme could have been Don Henley's Heart of the Matter, because remember the chorus? I've been trying to get down to the heart of the matter, but I think it's about forgiveness, even if you don't love me anymore. And that really made me think of Rebecca and her mom. Ted eventually, of course, comes to understand he needs to forgive his dad, but that song stuck with me. And then what happens today, I'm listening to Pandora and Heart of the Matter comes on. So I'm like, it's a sign. Yeah.
I'll go with the forgiveness theme as long as I got a friend like Sassy who's going to do my dirty work for me.
Yeah.
If I can trust her to take care of my enemies, I'm all right. Absolutely. How about you, Tom?
As they say.
Oh, yeah.
Go on, Tatsu.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. Go ahead, Tatsu.
I just wanted to drop a theme that I've noticed that I think really makes this show stand out in terms of quality. And I think it's one of the only shows that are out there right now that have that feel of a show like Cheers, where you just like enter a scene and people are just having a conversation, right? It's not solely focused on something visually exciting happening. It's not like necessarily just hanging on a cliffhanger. You enter that church, you enter that room with the gals, and they're just having a time, And so that was episode 10. episode 11 for me was all about the one-on-ones and taking you through the different shades of relationships, like the spectrum of relationships that you can have, you know. And I just wanted to throw that out there and see what people thought. But you don't see shows like that these days, and that way of building up characters by just listening to them, you know, have a conversation about something that really may or may not add to the plot of the show necessarily. So
I love the scene with Roy and the teacher.
Yeah.
I had to actually catch up with the sexual tension. Right. I mean, it just wait a minute. He's and oh my God, he ain't leaving. And they just she keep they
that was just after my favorite scene. My favorite scene and character is the lollipop teacher. I think the line was just immortal. It's could have been in The Godfather when Roy says, well, "Am I late?" and the lollipop teacher says, "About 25 years." Just brilliant. No, I'm glad to be back on this podcast because I actually think the show's gotten worse.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Tell.
and I'm interested in Procrastinella's remark on that scene because I thought that was the most ham-fisted piece of editing I've seen. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, this great scene that they're building up with Ted. What were they thinking at cutting it with Rebecca? I thought that was absolute nonsense.
You didn't like that.
Can you please tell us how you really felt, though? I think you're
Don't hold back, Tom.
Don't hold back. So look, when I saw that scene, here's how I experienced it. I finally realized they were going to go back and forth after a couple times. And I got the sense, are they really equivocating the suffering from parental suicide to that? Okay, now I'm not, but I also said maybe it's me that would think that. Maybe there are other people out there who would say that those are equal forms of suffering or somehow.
But you don't rank suffering. You don't rank suffering.
Oh,
suffering
yeah, you
is
do.
what's happening to you.
If I
And as a
pinprick my
child,
finger, that's not the
you know,
same.
finding out that your father can be so disloyal, it can be as traumatizing as the suicide is for Ted. I mean, I think their point was more of a universality of suffering. You know, it's just, life is hard and it's just hard no matter where you're standing.
Well, there was a parallel in that both, even though I would argue, yeah, your father committing suicide, probably more traumatic than watching someone pump your father. Whatever word we're allowed to say on the podcast.
You can say the word pump, we're fine.
Pump,
just don't use a capital P.
Okay, I'm sure he didn't. And but you know, I think they are parallel in the sense that they both explain why both of characters have shells up, you know, have those shields up. And so I think that's probably why, and also time-wise, they're both going through this catharsis at the same time.
Well, that's the thing, the catharsis, right? They're both revealing tensions that they haven't. I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
But I get, like, as a British person, you're probably thinking of Love Actually, and you know, like you know, how it might be a little cheesy in that regard.
Oh, I wasn't. I was thinking of The Godfather, and I was just hoping, as Procrastinella said, that half of the people were going to get killed immediately.
Well, you still have the season finale.
You never know, man.
The red wedding coming up.
Take a real
not the red wedding.
Oh, yeah.
So did you like that?
Nate's gonna be packing heat.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You might.
So did you like that scene, Kerri? That juxtaposition?
The back and forth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really did. I liked it. I liked it very much. I think it really connects Rebecca and Ted. I think it really has a lot to say about suffering. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think we experience suffering in a relative way. You know, we don't suffer and say, oh, well, somebody else lost a child
Right.
and somebody else lost someone by suicide. And so my suffering's not as harsh as all that. I mean, I'm a child and you're seeing your father betray the family in such a way. I mean, that's just a huge sort of blow. And I think, you know, I mean, I guess we could get into a game of which is the worst thing to have happen to you. But I think the point is that these were children who were realized by the adults in their lives.
And it also explains why, you know,
lives.
Ted and Rebecca have been making some of the decisions they've been making, you know, over the course of the series, and some of the things that deflected. And absolutely.
That's what I thought, that it wasn't so much of comparing one better or worse than the other. My first thought was that juxtaposition of the confessions, if you will, to me is like, this explains why Ted and Rebecca are who they are. I mean, think about it. In a sense, didn't Rebecca become her mom, in a sense, when she stayed with Rupert all that time? There she was, you know, having these pent up feelings towards her mom. Like, why didn't you stay? Why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? Why weren't you strong enough to leave him? But she finally got the strength to leave Rupert. And there her mom was saying, hey, I admired you so much when you did that, you know. But the difference was, I believe, as, you know, as dark as it was, or as messy as it was, she loved her husband. You know, she knew what he was. She knew who he was. And she's like, what? When I love something, I love it forever. And hey, that's love. It can be messy. You know, it doesn't make sense most of the time. And, you know, but, you know, I guess you can say it worked for her. But that's what I got from it. It was like, okay, here's a glimpse into why Rebecca is the way she is, or why Ted is the way he is. But that was pretty heavy, because I'm like, damn, to carry around suicide. And did they say, did he see his father?
Yeah, he discovered him. Yeah,
he discovered him.
He heard it.
Oh, okay.
I also think that the back and forth lets you see people's different and contrasting reactions to suffering. So, you know, Rebecca is just pure white anger, and Ted is still that kind of really small boy who, you know, is just made small and by this abandonment, you know, and the softness and a kind of ripping your heart out. And I think that in some ways the series needed things to be put together so that you don't go under. I mean, I think Ted's story is so, I mean, when he says, you know, I should have told him, you know, what a good father he was. I mean, it's just unspeakable, you know, to me, that a child feels like they owe that to a parent in order to keep them on the earth. You know, it's just an unspeakable thing for a child to grow up with. And to see that in his face, I think it, to me, have some relief from just the tragedy of that, to see Rebecca's anger and to see someone who's able to do something and stay put. So
yeah. And in her case, she got, I mean, her father had passed, definitely, but she still got to talk to her mom, and she got to express those feelings to her mom, even if it's just now, where, you know, Ted's not ever, he's gonna have to work through not being able to say those things. And that opportunity is lost. Absolutely. Tom, was that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We're going to on Sistah A. Favorite line, favorite scene, favorite character.
For me, season 10, this is just very lighthearted, but I really enjoyed the team getting themselves together for the funeral, and the team captain saying, look, lads, we can't be wearing any of our trainers. We've got to wear actual shoes. And they're just shocked by, what are these items of footwear that these people are wearing in the world? And just watching Danny struggle through the whole episode, and then finally enjoying the relief of Rebecca's lovely pink slippers that actually are the same. They're the same size. So I really enjoyed that part.
I love
Didn't you love
Colin's
her?
line. I don't have time to
Right.
stand in line at midnight and wait till morning to buy new shoes. And Janie's like, oh, you don't have to do that with those kinds of shoes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What if I wear really nice Yeezys?
Love that.
Red Yeezys.
What color? Red.
No.
I looked at him like, what? No,
Not happening. Not happening.
that was
Kerri,
funny.
favorite line, favorite scene, favorite character?
Well, I'll tell you quickly what my favorite line was, and then I want to say something else. So, I love when Keely's talking to Roy, and she says, you know, what do you want me to do when you die? And if you say you're hit by a bus, and he says, I want you to go after the bus driver and make him pay for what he did to me. Avenge me, Keely.
Love
I
it.
just-
Avenge me.
I just love his kind of consistent way of dealing with stuff.
Mhm.
But the thing I wanted to say about particularly episode 10, and I think it's been building all season, not so much in episode 11, but I just think the music is kind of a character of its own in this show. And for some reason in episode 10, it really hit me that the words to that opening number, yeah, this might be all that you get.
Mm.
I guess this might well be it, but heaven knows I've tried. I mean, this is the message of It's a Wonderful Life. I mean,
Yes.
hey guys, life is hard and it may not get any better than this. And then it ends such an absolutely heartrending. Molly Drake, who is Nick Drake's mom, or was Nick Drake's mother, and the I don't even know the name of the song, but she's each of the stanzas ends with I remember, and then it's what she remembers, and then what her partner remembers. And she says, I remember firelight and you remember smoke. Another one is I remember and you remember dust. And I just think that song is just, I mean, if I wasn't weeping earlier in the show, I was absolutely fundamentally depressed at that point. So, and of course, Nick Drake, another person who took his own life. So, I mean, a huge theme there.
The first song you commented on, that acoustic cover or the acoustic version of that song that they started episode 10 with, I kind of felt like I was in an Irish pub listening to folk music, and I didn't even recognize the tune originally, I'll be honest. But just that little change, that change in timbre, that change in the feel with the same lyrics really did kind of take it out of, we're starting this really cool Cheers-like series again. Here's your intro song that nobody skips because it's so infectious, right? To no, this is really what we're doing with it. And like you said, I second time I watched it, I picked that up on it more clearly and absolutely loved it.
Here, I thought you were going to bring up Rick Astley's song.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna give you up.
Oh God, that song.
That song brought all the feels. All the feels. Because I grew up watching that guy dance that song.
Yes.
And they got that little microaggression built in there where the mother says, I thought he was black. And of course, that's the running joke on that song, right? Is people didn't grow up with it. You know, they surprised when they see the video that he's a white guy. I loved it.
But they had a couple of 80s classics in there. I mean, when Rebecca and Sam were together, The Color Me Bad, I Want to Sex You Up, and Phil Collins and Philip Bailey's Easy Lover.
Nice.
Oh, Easy Lover is hilarious. You remember he says earlier in the show, or in the in the show, that a man should never need more time than the song Easy Lover to get dressed for any event. And there he is getting dressed, you know, Easy Lover.
You know, you mentioned that that's another one of those 180s because you're laughing your butt off because they're actually showing you what he said before, and then he starts to have another panic attack.
Yeah.
And it's like boom, boom.
I thought that was so interesting too, because that is how panic attacks come up. Is you're living your life, you let your guard down, And then something about that, it's like Scott, you'd know more about the neural networks than I do, but it's almost like it frees it up to let that stuff out. You
A
know,
trigger.
like you
of
say,
sorts.
trigger, yeah.
Exactly.
yeah. I do wonder if the 80s throwback, if like naming it Rebecca and Rebecca and Sam was a little nod to Cheers.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we've been saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that Jason Sudeikis, I don't know if we talked about this, but he actually is the nephew of George Wendt, who
Oh,
played
really?
Norm on
really?
Cheers.
Interesting.
So I feel like he harkens back to that quite a bit, is woven through the
Yeah.
show, maybe for that reason.
You mentioned the song, the music with episode 10. Great song choices. In fact, now I can't hear Easy Lover without thinking of, the show, just thinking of what Ted said. But I thought it was interesting. Episode 10 opened with I Want to Sex You Up, and, kind of being team Sam Becca. Yeah, that's right. That's what I call him. See what I did there? I just on a purely shallow note, they look beautiful together. I love the contrast.
Oh,
His
yeah.
glorious dark skin and her, pale, almost alabaster skin.
Mhm.
But and I enjoyed the scene. And I was listening to the previous Lasso Crew podcast episodes. Finally got all caught up, and I got to episode 6. And when you posed the question, was the show going to deal with race? Be realistic about it. Well, after I heard that episode, when I went back and watched the scene, because I watched the episode multiple times for quotes, for observations. And when I was rewatching it, whoa, that scene hit totally different after that. And it made me think, is it perhaps the show, the writers, that they are deliberately tapping into the taboos? I called it, what did I write? That it was a taboo buffet, because you had the contrast of Sam's gorgeous dark skin. I mean, maybe it was just me, or maybe I had, because I don't have the top of the line TV or anything, but man, did they pop when they came on screen?
Yeah.
Lovely contrast. And I thought, yeah, there they are saying, all you folks that this makes uncomfortable, here it is, right? I'm gonna make you deal with it.
Exactly.
And hey, like I said, I'm here for the swirl, so that didn't bother me. But I thought, it's a lovely pairing on every level. But I thought, maybe what they're doing is, hey, forcing the audience to address all these so-called taboos: black man, white woman, older woman, younger man, the power dynamic, which has been kind of flipped, because she's wealthier than him. She is the boss. He's her employer. And then it really got deep, because I'm like, ooh, we're really digging into that uncomfortable taboo. And that kind of reared its head when episode 11, I said, oh, not that it makes you uncomfortable, but, there was Edwin Akufu, was that his name? Kind of saying, hey, I want to build a team, my pitiful accent, for, hey, the best African players. And Sam, you should come home and play, just that almost, not that Sam doesn't have pride in it, in his homeland and what have you, but here he's saying, hey, let us do something. Because I got to admit, I was like, hey, cool, you got a black billionaire here. You don't see that often, on TV. So, very impressed. But the whole Sam Becca thing, I just thought, that kudos to the show for just, not shying away from it. They did it visually, but I would like to see them dig a bit deeper, because, I mean, it's almost like, I don't want to say too much, but, you've got the age difference, which again, no big deal. But I don't know how much older Rebecca is supposed to be than Sam, but it depends on how the camera hits Hannah Waddingham. Sometimes she looks older, sometimes softer, but I'm thinking her character is supposed to be maybe early 40s. And the young guy, he reads a lot younger because I'm like, Sam's what, 20, 22? But hey, no big deal.
21.
21 men do it all the time with women. So go for yours. You
Yep.
know, Rebecca, go ahead. And hey, if she's got, I mean, think about it. You've got this double whammy of an interracial relationship. Then an interracial relationship with a possibly huge age difference. So it's like all these things that are stacked against them, and it almost seems fairy tale like. But I'd like to see an honest examination of that, if you will, or as much as they can give you within the confines of this show. But that struck me when I saw that opening scene with them. I was like, I said, yeah, because after listening to that episode, I'm like, yeah, when are they going to address the issue of race? Because everybody's not going to be thrilled that he's what are his folks going to say? What are his people going to say? Not that it should be interesting if they go there, I think.
Yeah, I'm part of this. I joined this Ted Lasso discussion group page on Facebook, and someone posted today, the show used to be fun.
Oh,
I'm not lying.
Oh, you know what that is. Every time somebody black gets some screen time, it happened with This Is Us. Oh, it's the Randall show now. And it's like, oh, because they're not in the background making you laugh or dancing or performing. It's like, it's a good story. Let it play out. But I find that happens all the time when a black character gets front and center. It's like, oh, the show is boring now,
Well, Sam is such a unique character for like a black man on screen to me. Like he has this like saintly quality to him, but he's so young, and it's almost like I worry he's gonna get like sacrificed in the show because he's so good. I love his line of the best rejection line I've ever heard is, "I must warn you, I'm only going to get more wonderful."
Yes.
It's true though. Like he will.
Well, the thing is, that is the Empire Strikes Back Han Solo Leia scene. I love you. I know. Right. And I thought, that's all we get. That's all we get. But earlier in the season, we predicted that this intersectional nature of this relationship, the final straw would be that the team had to trade Sam. And what's happening now is this team isn't trading Sam. Sam's contract is being bought out by another company, plus all of these aspects of Sam's identity that he's not really been able to step into playing in the Premier League. So there's this whole new world open to him. And so it's not so much a matter of Rebecca's will having to sell his contract. It's a matter of a bigger world that Sam gets to choose. And but it's still that choice. It's still challenging that sort of intersection.
I think Procrastinella is wonderful for raising this, because I suppose I'm not as optimistic about this, in that Sam is played for comic relief, and the scenes with him with the Ghanaian businessman, I thought, the Ghanaian Nigeria stuff, and
I'm not sure Sam's just comic relief though. I mean, in the first season, he's the one that turned down the soldier that Ted tried to give him because he said, I don't have the same relationship with the American military you do.
But the way it's the scenes with him, so the big joke, the guy buys the crowd and he buys the people at the restaurant, and that, since I've been away, the characters that have developed have been the white characters. It's been Ted and Rebecca. We still have Nick Mohammed, the Asian guy, who seems to be the villain. We have Football is Life, who's still comic relief.
That I agree with.
We have Sam, who is, again, it's underplayed. There's very little development about this. The Nick Mohammed character, the way it's being set up, so with the Crim of the Independent, so is Nick Mohammed going to be fired? And then I thought, well, maybe they'll explore the issue of just how many black coaches there are in the Premier League. And if by black you mean black and British, there are none. The only one is Patrick Vieira, who's French.
Yeah.
Overall, there are 92 clubs in the English Football League, of which 6 are managed by people who are black and British. And I just think they've missed such an opportunity about race. And it's a show, I mean, it's a show about the travails of being white.
Well, if I say I don't agree, I mean, I don't disagree that there are, we could call them opportunities missed. I've always said from the beginning, this is a Venus flytrap. This is a Trojan horse. Get a certain crowd watching it because they love it, and then take them for a ride and teach them something. And I do think they've been doing that. Could they have done more? Yes, I don't disagree. And I wouldn't be surprised, to see them do more of that in season 3. How they handled the race issue in terms of having it be an African billionaire, that takes away some of the need for Rebecca to make decisions. I would have preferred that the issues you're talking about could come up, that her decision about Sam is related to managing the club. That would have been a more difficult decision for her to make. It could have been, these things you're mentioning could have come into conversation. So I do agree that seducing Sam away from the team, putting that challenge to their relationship came from that external source that I think would have been a bit more organic if it had come out of the team losing last year and this crap that they're suddenly 1 game away from being promoted to the Premier League. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
But I think,
putting up for the letdown though.
Tom, I would say, like, I can resonate with this sort of feeling that the show does sort of take a colorblind approach to race, because with Dr. Sharon Fields, there's never an acknowledgement of, here's a black woman psychologist. It's just, oh, this is a strong woman who's good at her job, which, in one respect, that's great. On the other hand, it also does sort of ignore, there might be racial dynamics and things like that. I wonder if it was a conscious choice on the writer's part, or if it was just sort of what they were doing. I don't know.
Well, I think they could be saving it for later. Tom brings up good points. 2 things. Not that it's not realistic with Sam, but like you said, he's like almost perfect. It's the Bagger Vance kind of syndrome, or less delicately put. A friend and I, in writing fan fiction, we talk about TV, and they've talked about it often online on Twitter. The magical Negro, where you're perfect, and I think that could be what they unintentionally are doing with Sam. I thought it would be very interesting. I find it interesting that Rebecca, being this sharp businesswoman, because remember, she comes out blazing in the pilot season 1, just telling the guy about what Liam and whatever she called his balls. Remember that she just can't, just like both barrels. She was like, take no prisoners, blah blah blah. So I find it interesting, a woman as formidable as her, as obviously as intelligent, and with such mettle, that they haven't had her address the ramifications, for lack of a better word, being in an interracial relationship with a black man, with a younger black man. And I think it would be realistic. It wouldn't be pretty to have her wonder. I think she did say, the press, that's about as close as she got to it. Remember when she was talking with Keeley? Because Keeley goes, are you worried about how it'll look in the press? But they didn't, touch on that. So, I I fear, now the more we talk about it, Godfather reference ahead, spoiler, I think Sam may end up being Apollonia, Scott. She, remember Apollonia was
Yeah.
sacrificed. That was Michael, Michael was truly meant to be with. She was cut out for the life, not Kay. I can't stand Kay Adams, by the way. But I think Sam may end up being Apollonia. You know, this wonderful good person who I keep waiting for something bad to happen. I remember Nyambi said, it's just a great show, enjoy it. But it goes back to, was it you, Dan, or was it Tatsu that said, it's just a great show about conversation and people talking, and we haven't seen anything like that in a long time. I think we've become so conditioned to watching, whether it's drama or comedies, and you're just bopping along and then they yank the rug out from under you, that, you know, somewhere in the back of your mind, you're waiting for that to happen with this. And, you know, it almost kind of prevents you from just enjoying it for what it is. You know, like I said, great conversation, great dialogue. It truly is an ensemble cast because everybody gets a moment. I mean, did you see in episode 11 the bar trio? They popped back in again to bug Dr. Sharon, and I was like, it's so cool how they can do that. Everybody gets a moment to shine. McAdoo, you know, Colin, all of them, and that's
Procrastinella. That was another one of my favorite lines, is when whoever the woman, or what her name is, when she says to them, you want psychiatric help? Call the number I gave you.
May.
She's already dealt with this.
Yeah.
It's like, we've addressed this before.
Yeah. Don't bother the lady.
You're shit crazy, you three.
On that note, I do want us to talk about the Lasso Fieldstone relationship and how it played out, particularly in episode 11. And I'll just put some of my reactions on the table to start the conversation. I'm not assuming that, you know. So as I'm watching it, and he gets mad at her because she left, and she sort of gives in and goes out and has drinks with him and such. I was scared when they started her character that they were going to equivocate the way he's with people with her professional expertise. And they didn't do that. It's been clear that she's the expert. He's been the one that's been deconstructed. They did sort of deconstruct her a little bit when she got her therapist told her she had to open up, and suddenly she does, and suddenly she helps Tim. You know, I felt that was a little heavy-handed because her expertise could have gotten her to do. Anyway, there were things about it that I thought, my experience was, I felt like they were dampening her expertise a little bit in the way they handled their out of therapy relationship. But that's just me. And what'd you have, Rusty, you think?
I thought they just humanized her, you know, to really bring her person. Because, you know, remember, she was real like standoffish. She was behind the scenes taking notes, or she was having these closed door sessions with the other players, or she was like observing Ted and making little notations in her notebook about him. But they weren't really, she wanted him to engage, you know, she gave him a few opportunities, you know, I told you to come and see me, Ted, my door is always open. And of course, you know, he tried to deflect many times, but then we like you said, she was very elusive, and we had even said, like, we don't really know who she is. And then we had that scene where Ted went and got her from the hospital after she got hit on the bike. And now it developed because she showed her vulnerability then, and then it helped her kind of tap into him, and then he opened up to her about what was going on with him. So I think it just kind of humanized her a little bit in that respect, so that she was leaving, but we did get to see a little bit more of who Dr. Fieldstone is as a character within itself, in addition to being the team therapist.
Well, I really, of all the things, the big negative for me in season 2 and episode 11 is the way she leaves. I mean, that's straight abandonment right there. I mean, this guy has this major breakthrough, and then she's gone, and she doesn't say goodbye in person. She leaves a apparently very moving letter. But that's a crappy way for a therapist to leave a client. I just,
Oh,
that
Not very
moved me.
professional.
that's therapy 101. Like, you always say goodbye.
But are they setting it
and I
up
think
for
that's
something
probably
else?
why she gets so personal with him, goes out for beers, because she knows she screwed up.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons I love her character. I think she's one of the most complex, well crafted, well thought out character progressions in the show, because you don't really know her at all for most of the show, and then you get little layers of the onion peeled away.
So
and then she's gone.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because the issue is Ted Lasso truly her foil though? I mean, is it really Ted Lasso that's needed to bring these things out in her? She has family, she has friends outside of this job.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it Ted Lasso that has to be the one to bring it out to her? Because I'm sure that she's done therapy with hundreds of people, and if they've written her to be saying goodbye with letters every time, we got to ask the psychologist, is that good writing? Because I don't think that would be tolerated. But
you didn't buy her explanation that she wasn't good with the goodbyes. It's probably cliche, but I deliberately didn't let myself go there, because this show is good at taking the tropes and turning it on its ear, because not to bring race into it, but let's be real, if Dr. Fieldstone were blonde hair and blue eyed, she and Ted would be making eyes at each other, probably be falling in love with each other. That scene between them, I thought it was very interesting. And just a side note, Jason Sudeikis was great, but I think it will be easy for people to overlook. Her name is Sarah Niles, the actress who plays Dr. Fieldstone. She was just as good. I mean, if you watch her reaction to Ted, I mean, she matched him, move for move. In fact, she kind of like maybe had the more difficult thing, because it was obviously Ted's moment, kind of liken it to people when they talk about Philadelphia. Yeah, Tom Hanks had the big, showy part. But, Denzel did something very amazing. He played against type because, he's Denzel, matinee. And there he was playing a guy who starts out as a bigot, homophobe. And then he learns that, hey, okay. He learns to see, I forget what Tom Hanks's character's name is, but to see him as a person. And they grow closer. And along that line, I thought that that Dr. Fieldstone in that scene, I thought she felt her emotions maybe getting away from her. I like to think that she pulls back because she finds herself getting too close to Ted, not romantically, but I mean, I don't know how often that happens, in therapy, but she's like, hey, I'm going to have, because Ted grows on you, I thought she was feeling like, I'm going to have a hard time keeping the personal separate from the professional, because I could really like this guy. Not I could really love him, but I've got to maintain what my objectivity is. Is that the correct word? And part of me, that itsy bitsy romantic person going, did she write and tell him that she really loves him or something? But watch his face, watch hers as he's reading the letter. That was it was an amazing piece of acting by what's his face, Jason Sudeikis. I mean, you literally see the emotions just dance across his face, and then watching her, and you could see her, it's like Sharon was feeling uncomfortable, but then like, yeah, that's why, it was all that unspoken between them, which I thought was great. And that was my favorite scene from from episode 11, them saying goodbye, him reading the letter, with his face, Ted. So
I thought that was a masterful bit. It reminded me of the final scene from Lost in Translation when Bill Murray whispers into
Scarlett Johansson
whispers into her ear, and we don't ever get to hear what he said. So their most intimate moment is actually public, right? While they were laying in bed together, basically for major scenes, major bits of the show, with no sexual innuendo. Yeah. So that scene there, that was the most intimate moment, and we didn't get to see it. We had to read it from Tim's face. Very, very good choice.
I hope they never tell us what, was in the letter, just
No,
have
never.
that
No.
She
mystique.
is such a great actress. I mean,
Yeah.
holy cow. Because she's walking that line between, I'm trying to convince you I can play this role of psychologist, and I can also play a role of psychologist who's feeling human emotions but staying in their role. That's like several layers of things to try to convey all at once.
Yeah, and Ted made it clear early on he didn't respect her profession.
Yeah.
No, he just came straight out, and so she had to manage that animosity with him. You're right. Where other people just went to her door and said, "I need help," and she helped them.
Yeah. But she did tell him she was offended by what he said, though. Like,
Yeah, she called him out on that. I have a question. Jumping back to episode 10, did anybody wonder what was the significance of when Ted's having his flashback, when he was having his panic attack, and you flash to the little toy soldier, then him playing with his son, playing with the fire truck, and then the bullseye. Does anybody care to riff on what they thought the significance of that was?
Well, I thought that was because his dad used to play darts with him, right?
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
And Ted feels he quit when he got divorced and moved away from his son. He feels like he quit. And given what his dad did, that's one of the pivotal aspects of his identity, is I'm never going to quit. And when your identity is ruptured to that extent because of choices you made,
right,
things fall apart, here and there.
So, I mean, Ted kind of views himself like a little army soldier, right?
Yeah,
like he's protecting everybody.
Got another question. The scene outside of the chapel during Rebecca's father's funeral, is that typical? Is that a British thing, that the family greets the mourners the mourners as they go in? Or I know here in the States, at least every funeral I've been to, especially Black funerals, we don't greet anybody going into the church. In fact, the family's usually like the last to go in, depending if it's open cast, if you're viewing the body before or after. But as I was watching, I'm going, that's interesting. And, especially being from the South, it's like, oh no, honey, you ain't gonna never see that happening at a Southern funeral, maybe at the, repast, maybe. But it just struck me. I thought it was interesting. It almost felt, well, not like a wedding, but I'm like, it was just, was it like the receiving? I don't know if you call it the receiving line, but I know after funerals, sometimes the family will greet people, but that was interesting that it was before. So that I was curious.
Yeah, I think, what usually happens is that there are people standing out at the front of a funeral just to check there aren't any Liverpool supporters coming in.
Zing!
I
have to go now.
So that about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Lasso crew members, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media, and we shall start with Dan.
I have no social media, so
there you go. That's makes it clear. All right, then. How about you, Sistah A? Go ahead.
You can find me on Twitter at _Sistah A.
Fantastic. How about you, Tatsu?
Find me on Instagram at Tatsushi, TATSU SHI 1892.
Fantastic. How about you, Montien?
You can find me on Twitter at NurseFood2K2.
Fantastic. And Tom?
You can find me on email at aka tombuller@gmail.com.
Fantastic. How about you, Kerri?
You can find me on Twitter at Kerri K. Morris.
Excellent. How about you, Procrastinella?
You can find me on Twitter at Isn't She Lovely? ISINSHELOVELY.
Fantastic. You can find me on Twitter at dark_loops. You can find all episodes of the Lasso Crew at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this podcast, please do so on this YouTube page or send a message to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember, football is live.
Bye.
Bye-bye.